Cam4.com has some of the internet's hottest cam girls broadcasting live from all over the world. Get 20 free tokens to get you started at cam4coupons.com/podcast. That's cam4coupons.com/podcast. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
What's up, all you horn dogs, whoreheads, and slut monsters? This is Billy Procida, and you're listening to the Man Whore Podcast. What's up? Welcome if you are new, and welcome back if you're not. I am your host, comedian Billy Procida. This week on the show, I've got veteran comedian and fellow podcaster Dante Nero. And I look forward to sharing them with y'all in a bit. This was a fun conversation. We'll talk about it soon. I just got back from Montana. I had a 17-hour return flight. If you've ever thought, I don't know if Billy deserves to get any of my money on Patreon, I just want to let you know that attitude is why I had a 17-hour return flight from Montana, which, by the way, I could have flown to Europe cheaper than Montana. I went out to Columbia Falls, Montana to go see a dear friend of mine get married. Definitely a short list of people I would fly to Montana and spend that kind of money for. This incredible amount of money, over $700 to fly to and from Montana. That was the cheap point. If I wanted to have an even mildly comfortable flying experience with one layover, that could have been $1,000, $1,200. It was wild. 17-hour return flight, 2 layovers. In a 24-hour time window, I fell asleep in 4 different time zones. Montana, Mountain Time, Las Vegas, Pacific Time, Dallas, Central Time, New York City, Eastern Time. But I had to pinch the dollars together. But I had to get there. I had to go see the girl get married. I've got no slutty adventures to share with you. Sadly, from the wedding, in part because I couldn't afford a hotel room. I was couch surfing, and when I got to the place, they had me staying in literally a children's room. Not only can you not bring someone back to fuck in someone else's 3-year-old's room, the 3-year-old wasn't there. Settle down. They were renovating a 3-year-old's room, and I got to stay in it while the kids slept in their room. But you're not bringing someone back to fuck in a child's bed with child-sized steps that go up to a child-sized loft. And 100% not going to masturbate in there. No, that's uncomfortable. I can't jerk it when there's a framed thing of Princess Sophia at the foot of the bed. Just can't do that. It's going to take me out of it. But I am excited for this weekend. I'm sure there shall be some tales and adventures to share with you in the future because Man Whore Con is upon us.
Get them hot. Get them dates. Show dates.
I'm recording this right now on Tuesday. When you're hearing this, potentially on Wednesday, the day it comes out, many whoreheads will already be descending upon New York City in anticipation to hang out with each other and get into to some ridiculousness. Man Whore Con is this weekend, and that means that this Saturday, August 3rd, we're doing a Man Whore Podcast live show. So you can still get tickets for that. We're going to have stand-up comedians get heckled by their exes. Yeah, I know. You've never seen that show before. You're going to want to come out and see it live in person in New York City, Saturday at 8 o'clock at Karma Lounge. After each set, we sit down, we talk about why they didn't work out. If you want to catch that, and I know you do, if you're in the greater New York area, get your tickets right now at manwhorepod.com/tickets. Tickets are $15 online, $20 at the door, so save yourself a few dollars. Go buy online. Another slight announcement, the Fan Whore Fantasy Football League. We're doing our 5th annual Fantasy Football League for fans of the show. We need 2 more people to turn it from a 10-team league into a 12-team league. So if you're interested, shoot me an email at manwhorepod@gmail.com. It's a $30 half-point PPR league on Yahoo. We draft towards the end of August. 2 slots left. Come get them. I discovered this fun little, it's a new chat show by this cute British babe with pink hair, who goes by @VenusLibido. She's doing this new little sex interview series called Private Parts on IGTV, and it's cheeky, and I'm learning about how the Brits speak about the sex stuff. You have all sorts of different terminology over there. It's kind of fun to see, like, oh, well, how does the UK handle the topics of sexuality and queerness and consent and all that? Because whenever I've talked to British guests for the podcast, y'all, the Brits don't even talk about sex. Which some would see as sad and be like, oh, you must not have good sex. I see that as scary, because if we're not talking about sex, then we're not talking about consent, and we're not talking about LGBT stuff, and we're not talking about the different types of bodies that are out there. We're not talking about the different types of sex acts you can do that are valid and awesome and fun, and that's not always just a hard penis and a hard pussy, right? So I'm one, just throw that, like, a big influencer type is talking about sex responsibly on the Instagram over across the pond. But it's also really fun. So I wanted y'all to check it out. It's called Private Parts. You can find it if you go follow @VenusLibido on Instagram. She also does a lot of fun drawings, like really those like very shareable but cool cartoons that tackle various, like, body and sex positive issues. Cool. Go check it out @VenusLibido. Let's get to your emails, everybody, before we get to Dante Nero. Your emails. This first one comes from Yoko, and the subject line is ways to meet people. This is in reference to last week's episode where I was talking a little bit in the intro about, how do fellow ethically non-monogamous people meet each other outside of the apps. She writes, I feel like this is a huge struggle and a barrier. We have a sex party community where I live that is expanding to bar nights before their parties, kind of like meeting in a more casual atmosphere. And then they're also doing some ladies only play parties. But I feel like that's a big pressure when you're attaching it to future casual encounters or meeting people to eventually play with at a party. I just want to have some adult cuddle time and maybe a bit of poly time. But most people are just telling me to check out this app or that app. And that hasn't gone too well for me because I live in a conservative and sparsely populated area. It's hard to find that special place to meet people who are both open-minded and poly. I'm tempted to join a few Facebook groups, but because I do so much business or networking things in vanilla land, I'm trying not to merge those worlds. So then it circles me back around to the casual and kinky groups and casual and kinky apps. Yoko. Well, yeah, definitely. That's definitely an issue. I do want to tell you and advise you when you talk about Facebook groups and not wanting to merge kinky land with vanilla land. And this is a common thing I've heard about. As many of you know, I have a secret Facebook group called the Champagne Room, which is a sex positive discussion group and just a fun place to share cute, sexy memes that is available to all of the members of my fan whore community on Patreon. And it's a secret Facebook group. And I just want to do like a real quick education difference between closed Facebook groups and secret Facebook groups. Closed Facebook groups, and this is according to lifewire.com and Facebook's website. A closed group is public facing, but only members can see the actual content within the group. However, anyone on Facebook can see that the group exists, and for the most part, they can typically see the members list of that closed group. As opposed to my Facebook group, the Champagne Room, it's a secret group. And secret group means not only can only members see the content posted, but regular people on Facebook can't even see the group, let alone who's in it. So I do encourage you to check out the groups, especially if you're in one of these more conservative areas or a sparsely populated area. See if you can find a Facebook group of like-minded individuals. And if you're worried about work or family seeing that, just make sure it's a secret group and not a closed one. A closed Facebook group for Philly's finest butt fuckers. No one's going to be able to see all the awesome stories about butt fucking in that group, but someone who searches it and goes into the members list can probably find out that Jim is one of Philly's finest butt fuckers, which I think Jim should be proud of, but Jim may not want his Aunt Carol to know about. And I would tell Jim, well, you need to tell the admins to make the Philly's Finest Buttfuckers group a secret group, not a closed group. Don't let Facebook terribly scare you. It's scary enough as is. Might as well have some fun within it. Next email, subject line, story time. This woman, M, she writes, I listened to your podcast, as you know, and, well, there were a lot of subjects that made me curious. For example, pegging. I never heard that term before. I decided to be off of sex for some time, but your podcast made me curious, so I contacted my old friends with benefits to discuss several subjects, but mostly pegging. We have done a lot of ass play in the past, so I wanted to see if he knew what it was and what he thought. We talked a lot about dom and sub relationships, and he asked to be my sub. That for me was a crazy thing to ask, and I told him I wasn't sure if I wanted to do any of it. I mean, I was just curious. So all week we're going back and forth, with rules and what would work and what wouldn't work, and I was still in that I don't know phase until Friday. I told him that I was down, and we met up on Sunday. I bought myself a nice sized dick and a strap on, and I did my first pegging to my very own first sub. I played the femdom role, and it was unbelievable. I never thought fucking someone with a strap on would feel so great. So I wanted to say thank you, because you introduced me to pegging. Wow, M, congratulations on your first pegging experience. I think you need to order this sub to go buy my t-shirt, which, as many of you know, I have a t-shirt that says, I'm saving pegging for marriage. It may not be true for him, but you like supporting the podcast, right? Have him go buy my merch that's pegging related. Of course, my merch store is available at gumroad.com/manwhorepodcast. Congratulations on the first pegging experience. May there be many more. All right, this last email is titled, Thanks for episode 275. L, she writes, Dear Billy, I just wanted to take a minute to say thanks for the Man Whore podcast, but especially for being clear about your feelings about Trump and the ethics of being slutty with MAGA folks. Your words were heartfelt and logical, which isn't easy when tackling those subjects. The episode happened to come out on my 40th birthday, and my husband is in the process of moving out. So I need something to feel good about. The sex talk reminded me of just how much you've helped me get in touch with my inner slut over the past couple of years, and that I shouldn't give up on good times in the years ahead. Unfortunately, with my living situation, every dollar is getting squeezed, and I really can't start donating on Patreon just yet. Please accept a picture of my tits as a small token of gratitude. Best wishes, L. Well, L, first I just want to say, it's not a small token of gratitude. From what I can tell by your picture, it's like a C-cup sized token of gratitude. Well, I hope that your husband moving out is a good thing and a step towards, a happier relationship or a better sex and dating life for you. You have so many good years ahead. We all know how I feel about the older ladies. I just slept with my oldest person ever, who's I think she's 47 or 48. And that happened like a couple weeks ago. That was dope. We all know how I feel about Nina Hartley. So yeah, you got so much going forward. At 40, you're so young. You're so young at 40. Go get it, girl. And thanks for the titty pictures. Thanks for writing in. If you want to send me your comments, your questions, your booby pictures, you can send them on over to manwhorepod@gmail.com. Okay. Before we get to my guest this week, Dante Nero, let's do the fan whore appreciation moment. Okay. This is the part of the podcast where I like to thank a few of the members of my fan whore community on Patreon. The members of my fan whore community don't only just get a bunch of awesome rewards, but they also help keep a roof over my head, the Wi-Fi on, and condoms on my cock. Is a great way to support independent content creators such as myself. So I want to give a shout out to Jules Gervais. Yeah, she's a randy Aussie who keeps complaining that she can't make it to ManWhoreCon. Well, you know what? Gather up a bunch of Aussies out there and you get me a plane ticket. We'll do ManWhoreCon Australia. All right. Thank you for being a member and supporting the show. A shout out to Angie, one of my Canuck whores. I love that there's a constituency of kinky weirdos who love the podcast up in the Great White North, and I'm glad that you're one of them. And a big thank you to Megan. I will see you very soon this weekend at ManWhoreCon. I'm so stoked that you're coming out, and I'm also really excited for you to get to meet, other like-minded listeners such as yourself. And you too can become a member for as little as $2 per month. That gets you access to a sex-positive online discussion group, the Champagne Room. Gets you access to secret private posts on Patreon, a shout-out on the show, and hey, you know what? You get the satisfaction of knowing that you #pay for your content. If I'm a part of your weekly routine, I should be a part of your monthly budget. Become a member today at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. And now for this week's guest, Dante Nero, a very funny comedian. And he does a podcast himself called Man School 202, which is kind of an offshoot, a rebranding of the Beige Phillips Show, which is one that he's been running for 7 years. We had a really great conversation. We talked a lot about masculinity and Me Too, and how a lot of this toxic masculinity comes from a lack of empathy. And that gets personalized for him when we talk about his history as a pimp, which he was back in like the 90s. So we're talking a long time ago. I knew about his pimping past, but I did not know how he felt about it. And I did not know that he felt remorse about what he did. And something he's very open about in a way that I think is a great example for dudes. So, I'll give a thought or two about that at the end of the show. Enjoy my conversation with a really funny dude, really thoughtful guy, Dante Nero. Every week, it seems I'm trying to sell you on a place where you can pay to get off. And that's because, I believe you need to #pay for at least some of your porn. Okay? Cam4.com is a great place to do that. Cam4.com is a free cam site with thousands of hot models broadcasting live from all over the world. Several past guests of this podcast have been cam girls on this site. If you remember Nikki Knight, she's actually one of their cam girl coaches. They have a wide variety of models on there, and it's free to access. So you can pop in, take a peep, see if you're digging it. And then, when you want to show your appreciation for the hard work that he or she or whoever is doing, you buy some tokens and you throw them some tips. But exclusive for Man Whore Podcast listeners, Cam4 has a special offer. You go to cam4coupons.com/podcast and create your free account, and Cam4 is going to give you 20 free tokens just to get you started, which you can then send the models, to stand out or to make requests. And you'll be like, hey, flash your ass, suck his dick. Or even just, hey, can you wave to the camera? I'm just really into women who wave. So take advantage of this special offer. Go to cam4coupons.com/podcast. That's cam and the number 4 coupons. I swear, if you can't spell those two words, we've got issues. Cam, the number 4 coupons.com/podcast. Create your free account and get your free tokens. Start watching, start chatting, start playing with the hottest live models today.
And since Black Phillip show, where it was like really, because some of the Black Phillip stuff is even cringeworthy with me. I mean, it was really mostly Patrice, and I was kind of like his sidebar, but even that stuff is cringeworthy to me at some point in time. I mean, I've been doing comedy almost coming up on 20 years, nice. And I remember when we would say faggot on stage, like that was, even prior, and it was okay, or at least we thought it was okay. And I remember being on stage in the time when I felt like I said it and it just didn't feel right. It just was, it was just wrong for me. Yeah. When and people hate to hear this, who say when it was okay to say it, or at least when we thought it was okay to say it, we didn't mean it in the context of gay sex, gay
right.
relation.
That's the normal defense was what?
Right.
We don't mean gay, we just mean weakness or
right,
whatever
right,
it was.
right, right. But you couldn't. But it comes a time where you go when you say when I always say this: that we will always have imperfect allies, and so when you have imperfect allies, you'll have people that have made mistakes in the past, and the question on people because they make mistakes when they're younger and less mature and less informed, are they irredeemable? I think they can be. But the point is, if they're not being, if they're making the effort to meet and to understand what I mean is, I like. So, for instance, you have, I think there's something like 59 transgender, LGBT different categories. I don't know those categories. I don't plan. I don't plan on knowing them all. I plan on if somebody's comfortable being addressed in a certain way. I'm not somebody that's going to go, no, I'm not doing that. In the grand scheme of things, what does it cost me to change, to make somebody feel comfortable? And if anybody knows me, I'm always trying to make people feel comfortable. I mean, I find that my life is enriched by enriching other people's lives. And so any way I can do that, I'm willing to do that. Even in the context of that, if I'm speaking about the enrichment of people's lives, it forces me, even when I want to not be so nice or I want to not be fair, I have to be fair because I don't want my authenticity to be questioned. And so even when the easier way out is maybe not the most ethical, I have a tendency to go the harder way simply because of the fact that I find that becomes your confidence. That's your confidence. Ultimately, your confidence becomes about whether or not you're a fraud or not. Because when it's all said and done, when you're laying across your bed and the ceiling fan is spinning, the shadow of the ceiling fan is crossing your face, you know who you are, you know what you've done, and there's no running from that. Even when you find people that are delusional or just they misrepresent what their life is or who they are, they still know they suck. And I don't want to ever have to look in the mirror and say that I suck. I don't. Two things that I think that we're always going to have to do as human beings is forgive and ask for forgiveness. We're all going to make mistakes, and we're all going to have to forgive people for making mistakes. I mean, that's the process of being human and being erred, but the fact that somebody is willing to hear you and apologize with action or adjustment, then I think that makes people worthwhile.
Absolutely.
So
this is a good time to say I'm sitting down right now with stand-up comedian Dante Nero, vet, podcaster, relationship expert, counselor. Would you call yourself a counselor? I
like guru.
Guru. You like guru. You like the phrase guru.
Yeah.
So even in, you're talking about the language we'll do, that's done on stage and stand-up and how it felt. We thought it was fine. Words like fag or tranny is another word that is getting out of vogue. But what you're saying for you stopped using it not because you got a finger wagged at you X number of times. It was, you said it just didn't feel right at some point.
Well, it was. I don't care about the finger wag.
Right.
You can't because everybody wants to wag a finger. Here's the other thing: is everybody wants to be remembered. Everybody wants to be validated in the context of their life. And so, what you're finding now is people find validation in the fact that they can shame or shun other people, and it's really not about the personal growth. It's just about you being the person who's gonna be you want to put the cape on and put the S on your chest.
You want the status.
Yeah, the status.
You want to feel above someone else. I'm better than you.
And that's because and the only reason why you ever think that needs to be said is when you already don't believe that you're good enough. And so one of the things that I say all the time is that if you got a guy and he's 5'4", and he when you ask him how tall is, he says he's 5'5" or 5'6". He, in his mind, he thinks that 5'4" is not good enough. That the context of who he is as a person is not good enough. And because it's not good enough, he needs to misrepresent himself. Yeah. If he thought at any given time that 5'4" was tall enough or was enough, then he would say 5'4". When a guy is 7'2", he doesn't go. A lot of times he'll even downplay it. He might even go, "I'm over 7 foot." Right. He doesn't go, "I'm 7'2" and 3/4" because it's not necessary.
It's like, I don't want to brag. I'm already a giant.
Yeah, and a lot of that we don't know what the discomfort in that is. Taking planes and having to go first class. You know what I'm saying? There's so much of that, but the point is, it's the insecure person that needs to state that because they feel powerless. And then what you have now is people want to jump on other people's back because they feel powerless, because it makes them feel strong. But when it's all over with, you're just not even you don't feel any better. Like, you make the person feel worse, that the offender. You make the people around you mislead the people around you, and deep down, you still don't.
You're still where you were.
Yeah, you still are a fraud. You're a fraud. Now you're just another fraud. Good friend of mine, Jamie Kilstein, for years, he got caught up in this far right liberal kind of thing. And it really changed
Which he was
him.
a part of.
Yeah. Well,
that was kind of the wild thing.
Yeah.
He was getting attacked by his own people. He's like, well, I thought I used all the right. I read the articles and then.
But when he talks about it, he talks about how it becomes a cult on both sides. Mm-hmm. The white supremacist, sexist, male toxic, agenda is, there's a cult in that. There's a digging in the heels, but there's the same thing on the left side where you have people who really don't care about what they're talking about. They just want to have something to say. They want to have a platform.
A sense of power. Yeah. And I get where the sense of wanting that power comes from, because on the left, it typically is more from like a lot more like oppressed groups who just haven't had power. I get I get at least where the desire comes from. I don't think the way it comes out with like social justice warriors is right. Yeah, but they use the same tactics.
Here's what's interesting even about that. Most of the people who are really being oppressed are not the ones that are bitching. Because they're being oppressed and they're dealing with the oppression. Sure. It's always the people who are not. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, you talk about the civil rights movement, anything like that. You had white people that walked across the bridge in Selma, Alabama. It couldn't have happened. Things like this couldn't have happened if you didn't have allies and allies of other ilks, and that's how change happens. People go, what is ethically correct? And from whatever is ethically correct, that's what we make the decision. The problem is that most people are not ethically correct. Sure. They're trying to reach an advantage. Something I've been thinking about heavy is, even with the toxic masculinity and all the stuff that's going on, what I don't know, I might get in trouble for this, but I always get in trouble for something. An asshole like a Harvey Weinstein or Bill Cosby,
or rapist like Harvey Weinstein,
right. Well, right, and rape, and all that goes into that, is not a nice guy to guys either. Like, those guys have no personality, and they always felt unpowerful, and so they become rich and famous, and they bend people's will. Yeah. And so when they deal with women, they bend women because they're attracted to women. They bend the will of women in sexual ways. Sure. But the guy who works for him is getting his will bent just because he's not attracted to him. It doesn't end up in sexual ways, but Harvey Weinstein is a jerk to everybody. Yeah. If you look at Bill Cosby and you look at all the stuff that anybody that kind of crossed him, like if you talk about in the Cosby Show, Theo was his son. His best friend was Cockroach, and Cockroach hated Bill Cosby because he was so nasty and so rigid and so all these things, and so,
or because he titled him Cockroach, he named him Cockroach.
Right,
I'd be surly.
Yeah, and to be honest, he's the one that got him fired. He's the one that fired him. I remember when Lisa Bonet did her first breakout movie was Angel Heart, where she had sex with Mickey Rourke. he kind of disowned her. And so here's a guy who's not just bending people's will and taking advantage of people because of his power, just in the context of women. He's doing it all across the board. You don't ever, people who are assholes all the time. They don't take breaks. They don't pick spots. They put on the front when they need to put the front on, but they're just jerks. And if the guy who has the power is and not just the guy, because you find this with women will do that to men. They'll bend men's will. If the guy is attractive, a lady boss will do the same thing.
Sure, but you do want to make sure that like we keep in context the hierarchy of like what that bend of the will is, like whether like if it's a sexual assault versus like I make this guy go get my laundry and I call him fucking terrible names, I make him do menial shit every day. Those are both asshole things to do, but like I almost feel like it diminishes one to like lump them both as assholery.
Well, I don't think
like
it
I like
does.
to separate the class of assholery.
I don't think it does. Okay. And I'll tell you why I don't think it does. Because you don't have to eat the whole birthday cake to know it was made with rotten eggs.
Sure.
These people are who these people are through and through. If their proclivity is sexual deviancy, that's what it is. Male, female, or otherwise. Now, that doesn't negate for 1 minute the fact that women have, I say this on stage all the time. I say, if I had to consider every time I go out on a date that I could die at the end of it, I would give no pussy up ever. I would fuck nobody, So that's something that goes to the empathy. So I have an acronym that I try to live by. It's called ACE. It's authenticity, credibility, and empathy. Authenticity is to tell the truth and be honest and truthful about who you are and tell the truth. Credibility is when you say something, make sure you mean it and you follow through and you do it. Otherwise, don't say it. And empathy is whoever you're dealing with in any relationship, family, female, male, whatever it is, have the empathy to know what the other person is going through, have the ability to get into their shoes and perceive what their cross to carry is. And if you do that, then everything falls into place. And if you think about any problem that we have in society, it's a removal of one of those three principles. So if you're for instance, I had a guy call me up. I did a consultation with a guy, and he says to me, he was dating this girl off and on. And all of a sudden, she calls him up, and he calls me up to tell me that she's very abusive, and she's very verbally abusive and emotionally abusive. And he says, "How can we do this?" And he goes, I said, "Well, every time you submit to this behavior, what are you communicating? You're communicating that this behavior is acceptable.
There's no consequence to the action, right. So why would they do any different?
And if you're just yapping about, I don't like this and I'm not going to put up with this. When you say I'm not going to put up with this, you've already put up with it. Mm-hmm. That's why you're talking about you're really saying I'm not going to put up with this anymore. It's happened, but there's no consequence to that. And if you give access to people who are abusive, they're always going to be abusive because you're green lighting the behavior that you so readily say is non-negotiable. And so you have to leave.
And that's what, as a society, we need to be doing with this, with toxic masculinity.
Sure.
We've said, don't do that. And now we are actually, with Harvey probably going to jail. Cosby's in jail. There needs to be these consequences. And I think those ones are easy when it's the concept of someone rapes somebody, you go to jail if we can put you through. We're not quite at there yet, but that's the idea.
Right.
I think it's when you're talking about redemption and who gets to be redeemed, I like to separate certain acts. I don't think Cosby gets to be redeemed. You do that to that many people, no. But with people I mean, one or two.
But being redeemed doesn't mean that you don't have to pay for your past indiscretions.
Sure. I think when we're talking in terms of dozens of people, I'm like, there's definitely not a redemption, and that's an extreme example, but I think we still need an example. I think as men, this is why Louis C.K. breaks my heart so badly, because I thought if anyone, because when Cosby came out, everyone
Yeah.
also knew, comics knew about Louis. And it was
comics knew about Bill, about
Right.
Cosby.
So-
everybody knew he messed
Right.
around with young girls. That was a going.
So I was always thinking like, oh, it's inevitable. Like this Louis thing will eventually come out. It's a matter of when. And then, when it did, I thought, okay, if anyone, because it wasn't like taken pussy, right? It wasn't
Right.
that level.
Right. It
So it was
wasn't.
like, this was the thing I thought this could eventually come back. I think he's got to go away, got to do some soul searching, some penance, and you come back. I was like, if anyone could come back and then also make it funny and poignant,
right.
I think Louis is one of those people where he's that good at comedy. He could make it a teaching moment. I think we need a redemptive character. We need an example of fucking up and coming back and learning from it.
Well,
here's
the
I don't
problem.
think he's been doing that, but I thought he
I don't
could have
know.
been that
I don't
guy.
know about that. I like when you talk about all the things that he lost because of this. He had a show, he had a movie, he had all this stuff that he's lost. He's also gone away. But now
It's like 10 months.
But what people want? Yeah, but we have a president who's.
Oh yeah, I also
farts.
think he should be locked up.
Right,
Just-
but that's not going to happen.
Sure.
And here's the other thing. I don't know. I was at the at Skankfest when Louis came through,
Yeah.
and Louis said, "I've learned so much." He said the first joke he did was, "Learned so much." He goes, "If you want to jerk off and you ask a girl if you can." Make sure you ask a girl if you can, and if you do, and she says yes, still don't do it. That was his joke.
Yeah.
And so there's no way that he's not changed by this.
He could have been like, okay, I tried to drop in a couple times. People pissed. Let me rent out this black box theater for like 3 months. I'm going to be there every Tuesday. It's $10 tickets. All the proceeds go to Rain. I just need to have a space where I can do that. It's not imposing on anyone. My fans can come check me out, and I can work through these concepts and these bits I want to do. That is an example to me of like, I'm acknowledging the anger and I'm going to change my behavior because of it.
Did he do anything to like donate to anything or?
Not that I've seen it publicized,
Yeah.
but gone for 10 months when there was that much anger and that much of a fall from grace, I just feel like it was premature. Because I'm not one of those people, he can't come back. We know there's like people online who go, he's fucking forever done. And I was always like, oh, dude, he's just trying to figure out how, or maybe. And I don't know. Also, when that leaked set come out, and I know it's not a polished set, but when I saw his premises, I was like, this is what you had to come back for?
Yeah.
These are lame old
but
man
come on,
premises.
let's be honest.
You could have waited an extra year.
Yeah, that's easy to say when this is what you do. Anybody who does comedy, we do it because we can't not do it.
Sure.
You know what I'm
But
saying?
it's like you don't have to, like when people are very clearly mad that you're dropping in at places, maybe don't. But it doesn't mean he doesn't have to go on stage. There's just another way to do it. I thought, at least. I thought that would have been respectful to the situation.
I just think where is the, I think, what I think is that when you look at this, they want to grind Louis into dust for whatever reason. He has that way. However, anybody else has been redeemed or other people don't have that. When it comes to Louis, there's something about him that they want to grind into dust.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what he would do. They want Louis dead. Pretty
But
much.
I think that's a vocal minority. I think that's a very loud minority of the people who are not happy with him.
Well, that's the thing. There's fans and people's like, I was at Skankfest. He got a
Standing ovation.
Standing ovation. So what I'm saying is, but this is the thing. It's the mob that's deciding what and what. Now, in no shape or form am I unaware of one of the main principles of Man School 202 is authenticity, credibility, and empathy. And so none of those things can happen if you don't have those things. So even if you're Louis, if you're practicing in empathy, you're aware of what your position is and your position in the community, and that these girls are young comics or whatever, and then you do this dirt and then you do everything to squash it, and that's not redemptive, and none of that is redemptive. But I also am not one to say after 10 months or a year of him just being ousted that that's not enough for him to see. Look, he may never, I think there are people who are going to be chauvinistic and misogynistic no matter what. That we're not going to change that. What we can change is that the behavior is inappropriate. So there's people that probably would murder people if murder wasn't illegal.
Yeah.
Our job is not to change them as people. Our job is to make sure that their freedoms don't infringe upon other people's. Sure. And I think if you're doing that and that's fair, I mean, I'm extensively, I'm so in the whole idea of reparations and slavery and race and the history of it and the history and you're just not going to find people who you gotta teach and hope that people are willing to learn, and if they're willing to learn, you got to be willing to teach them and take the time and the energy to do that.
And I think when men, we've been taught right now to either be scared of like what we do or say, or be flagrantly like don't give a shit. And what I would really like men to have is a public example of coming back and showing that growth. And then maybe when Louis drops the special, maybe we're going to be astounded and we're oh my God, it's whatever. But I really would like men to have that example, someone to be like, oh, I don't have to be terrified, because if I mess up, I can learn and I will be welcomed back into society for the most part. I would like to have that.
Here's the thing with, in the whole Trump era and all of this stuff where we're arguing whether or not go back to your country is race. Like this is a discussion now all of a sudden. And somebody who believes that this is a discussion, you're a liar. You know it's not. You just want to be in a conversation that you really shouldn't be in. So if you're saying you're a misogynist, if you say women should be this, that, the other, you can say that. You can feel, you're allowed to feel that way. Here's the difference. When there is a discussion about where the line is drawn, how we should act, you don't get to be in the conversation because you're an idiot. But people misrepresent themselves as if they really have the empathy to want to figure this out. But they don't really want to figure it out. They just want to be in the conversation so they can talk about their bullet points and women this and the suffrage movement and whatever arguments. And it's always the same arguments, which don't even stand up to the scrutiny anyway. So if you really have a real if you're really honest and authentic about it, then you can have a real dialogue. But if you're not having if your intention is not to be honest in the first place, then and we need to stop discussing things with people who are clearly not honest about and show no credibility, no authenticity. Those people need to be dismissed. If you're dishonest, you need to be dismissed. Stop
engaging in those quote unquote debates.
That's what we need to oust. If we oust that, all the rest of the stuff will go away, because you know that this toxic masculinity, it's not okay to bend somebody's will because you have power. You know how you know that's the case, even if you're a man? Because you don't want somebody to do it to you. So if you know, then you get it.
It's that whole thing when dudes are like worried about getting grabbed at like the gay bar.
Yeah.
Where the straight dudes go like, oh, I don't want the queers to touch me. It's like, yeah, you're worried they're going to treat you the way you treat women.
Right. And what's really interesting about this is, I would say that and I say the same thing about racism, is that racism, like racist white dudes see racism kind of the same way they see a woman's period. Yeah, it kind of exists, but it's really not that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't have to interact with it much.
How bad could it really be?
It affects me 3 times a month.
Right. And because I'm aggravated, So but that is, again, goes back to a lack of empathy. That's a lack of empathy, that somebody will tell you that they're in pain and you ignore and tell them no, they're not. Or you say that this is a racist situation, and then and you go, no, it's not. You don't get to make that decision. You don't get to make that decision when you've made those decisions. And this is what you've turned up with. To the same token, the Aziz thing was a whole, you know what I'm saying?
That was overblown.
Right. So I get what you're saying about these examples, but see, this is the other side of those examples. But you have to believe that the people that blew that out of proportion, it really wasn't about really understanding what the dynamic of it was. I just don't believe they wanted something to yell at.
They want blood, but I still want. I drowning them out if someone gets to come back and show the growth when they come back. Not just like, okay, it's been X amount of time, so like he can have a special. It has a special and shows that they've learned something. Well, then you and I, we can drown out the loud people and maybe see like, oh, cool.
Even with the I can't even remember. I just said his name and I can't.
Aziz.
Even with the Aziz thing.
That big movie star, millionaire.
Aziz is an awkward dude. Yeah. So if you read the exchange, she goes to his house because she digs him.
Yeah.
He goes to, she blows him in the kitchen. They stop. They remove to another place. She blows him again. He's putting his fingers in her mouth. Here's a guy who doesn't know, who's not paying attention, which absolutely is a lack of empathy. Because he's not getting any social cues.
All the blood's in his dick and nowhere else.
And he's not thinking about, well, is this awkward or this is, but there's also a matter of him maybe not having the social acuity to see that could be very possible too. But to blow this out to the proportion of this for a guy who's awkward, for a girl who
for what was just it was a really bad date.
Right.
A really bad date.
And then for a guy to go, hey, I had a great time. He texts her, I have a great time. Can't wait to see you. Clearly he was oblivious. And so this is a great teachable moment, but it's also a teachable moment before you blow somebody to tell them you don't want to blow them.
Right.
It's your responsibility.
But we also have not raised women to feel empowered to say those things.
I think we're just starting to. I'm a 53-year-old man. So anybody who didn't want to blow me didn't blow me. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. I am willing to wager, as a big gambler myself, that a couple people have blown you who didn't want to blow you, but they act enthusiastic because maybe they thought that's what they should do because they're a chick, you're the dude, and that's just what you're doing.
You can't, listen, you cannot.
And I don't think, but when I say someone blew you that didn't want to blow you, I don't think you're a bad guy for getting that blowjob.
No, I get that, but I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah.
I'm also, if there's any apprehension at all, which you can see the apprehension, yo, I'm good. No, I'm good.
I've stopped things and be like, yo, are we not... are you nervous or what's going on?
Right.
And I think the same lack of empathy that misses those cues of whether someone even wants to do it is the same reason we have that orgasm gap where someone's like, they're not paying attention to her body because they're just more like, I'm getting it in and I'm not paying attention. Is she even enjoying this?
Right. Well, but that also comes from an awkwardness that both men and women go through. Because two things that men and women that men especially is supposed to be good at, whether or not they have practice, is relationships and sex. Somehow
you saw every episode with it.
It's you have, that is an expectation, and the only way you get good at sex is by practice. The only way you get good at anything is by practice. Or maybe we could
do comprehensive sex ed in schools. Who knows?
That might be nice too. But even that, you can't buy a new pair of Jordans and get on the court and dunk. You still got to make mistakes, and in the social minutia of relationships and so on and so forth, there's going to be more mistakes. The real question is whether or not somebody is being predatory or somebody is being maybe uninformed or naive. And
I would only push back on that is I think that's fine and we want to look at the intention, except we also want to educate people so that the mistakes that are made, that are inherently going to be made, we want to make sure those mistakes aren't such big mistakes that they traumatize someone the rest of their life. So we want to make sure these aren't like consent level mistakes, but rather like I fingered her too hard.
But even that is a difficult thing because what people are supposedly quote unquote offended by, now they're outraged.
I'm not talking about offensive. I'm just talking about consent practice. I'm just talking making sure that you don't. I'm just talking making sure we're not accidentally sexually assaulting people while we learn how to please women.
Right.
I'd rather that those
Absolutely.
mistakes be just like, oh, I tweaked her nipple too hard because I didn't know.
And for a woman to go, you have to create an environment where a woman say, ooh, not that hard.
Yeah.
Where she can say not that hard when it happens, and you go, as a guy, you go, because if your intention is not to do that in the first place, the minute that you see there's this kind of genuflect about a level of discomfort, because ultimately it pays off for you. It pays off for you in this relationship when you're paying attention and you're able to please somebody in the way that they want to be pleased. The only way you can do that is by paying attention. If you're not paying attention, so again,
If you're only focused on your pleasure and not paying attention.
which goes back to the empathy. Again, it goes back, and time and time, no matter what the problem is, no matter how many times, because I do one-on-one consultations. If anybody wants, you go to DanteNero.com. You can book time with me. Time and time again, it always happens in the context of some lack of authenticity, credibility, or empathy. It always comes back to that. I counseled a woman who had a older woman too, 50 something years old, 53, 55 years old, married a guy who's a couple of years under, helped him with his career, and then he got him a job overseas, and then all of a sudden he decided he wasn't going to be married. He didn't want to be married anymore, which was naturally because of the fact that he was in Korea, and it was, he's probably screwing hookers and whatever, and now he's away, and now all of a sudden he's got this new life that she helped to give. And then she basically kind of felt it. She felt that there was a change, a shift in the wind, and she asked him, and then he said he didn't want to be married, and so she called me, and I said, and she was just, I feel so stupid. She kept saying, I feel so stupid, and I asked her, why does she feel stupid? And she said, it's just like I was fooled. I should have known. And I go, this is the problem. The problem is that when you say you feel stupid, you think by some way you were taken by somebody who was more savvy or more, and that's bad. The point is, what you did was you loved somebody. You gave love to them. You gave them honesty, credibility, and empathy, and they couldn't accept it. So the person who should be ashamed is the person who couldn't accept it, not the person who lives in abundance and love and is able to give some empathy and love in abundance. That's the person who we need to tout and celebrate and lift up. It's not the person who does the dickhead shit. It's but we're in this situation. Whoever wins, but that's not true. You're not winning. If your life is a series of taking advantage of people and manipulations and stuff, what I find more over than anything, those people are never happy. They're never happy. You're never happy bombing other countries or putting kids in like that does not make you happy.
Stephen Miller's a little happy.
Right, but when you talk about somebody like that, we see him as he's a fucking sociopath. Yeah. So we're in the normal sense. Look, you don't have to like cats, right? You can hate cats, but if somebody's kicking a cat, right? Even if you hate cats, maybe you won't say something the first two kicks, but eventually you go, dude, it's a fucking cat. Our humanity, our divinity kicks in, and we go, this is, our sense of right and wrong kicks in, and we go, this is just not right.
Right. And those people, this kind of lends into what we talked about right before we got started about like the pimping history.
Right.
Was you acknowledged what you were doing as a pimp wasn't right to do.
Sure.
But you still did it. And so when you were done doing it, like, I guess, where did you start learning your integrity to follow your conscience? Because your conscience was kicking in then.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it was a young, and in youth, I was like, oh, this is, pimps was cool shit.
Yeah.
What happens is even the minutia of that, the fact that you have multiple women who count on you for everything is a burden. I know that sounds crazy, but it ain't. It's not nobody wakes up and decides he's going to be a pimp. I had a discussion about, nobody says, hey, when I grow up, I want to be a pimp. You have a quality that women see, women who are already in the game. Like a pimp is really not, you don't make a decision. And I'm quite sure that that's different now with the internet and stuff like that. But there was a thing where the woman, the prostitute turns the pimp out. Like, for instance, you're a square guy, or at least you think but you have a charisma or something that women are attracted, some magnetism. And then the woman goes, oh, I would do anything for you. Mm-hmm. And you go, oh, okay, I want some sneakers. But no, she's like, then she keeps going, I would do anything for you. I would even... And that comes out. I'll even
gangbang 10
I would sleep if you
yeah.
tell me. And now this becomes an ego thing, because now you're going, oh wow, I have this control over this person, but they have to give you the control first,
right? However,
and I'm not talking about white slavery where you've kidnapped somebody. What I'm talking about is the game where there is this dynamic. There's this social dynamic.
I would argue, though, that the integrity portion would be when you realize you were doing something you don't think was actually right to do, you had the option to not. When they're offering you control that might have become irresponsible, you could say no. You're saying, hey, I was kind of dumb and in my 20s. I'm saying, so for you in your life, after, like, where did the integrity start kicking in?
Well, let me say this first. The first part of it is that this existed. The first thought is, she was selling pussy before me. Mm-hmm. This is going to happen whether I'm part of this or not, and then you become part of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you turn this down, she's going to find somebody else to watch her back and be her pimp.
But you could also watch her back without taking cuts or making
you're caught into, you're in that game, and because you're in the game, you kind of have a blind spot. Mm-hmm. But what happens is just like the kicking of the puppies, you know, you go, oh, you start to genuflect your ethical, if you have an ethical fiber, it eventually goes, I'm uncomfortable with this. I'm uncomfortable what this entails. Now, here's an interesting thing. Once I decided that I didn't want to do it, I just backed out of it. But even when it came to guys who I knew who were having bachelor parties and they wanted strippers or wanted hookers and stuff for the bachelor parties, where these women wanted the work, right? They wanted to do the work. I wouldn't even recommend a number. I won't even give a phone number up. So if you want to get strippers, you don't call me. You got to call somebody else. Even though I have numbers, it's all available to me. And maybe not so much now because I'm so far removed, but even at the time when I was just out of the game, I wouldn't even refer you to somebody because I didn't even want to get my hands dirty at the level of passing a number to somebody who wanted to facilitate. So for instance, you know, prostitution is legal in other countries, in Vegas, in other states. I would not even facilitate it in the context because I think it's exploitive. Mm-hmm. So I just pulled out of it to that. But I had to get to the point where the moral fiber, where I just couldn't take it and I just didn't have the stomach for it.
Which is similar to when we were talking earlier about like certain words or types of material, or at least certain philosophies that you said it's not that you had the finger wag that made you stop saying certain things. You just said at some point it felt wrong.
It felt wrong. And to understand that people, to have the empathy to understand that your actions hurt people, whether or not they're going to be hurt beyond you or not, doesn't make a difference. You don't have to participate in it. Right. And that's a lesson.
Someone asks you, get me heroin, like if they're going to get heroin either way, I mean, that's outside your control, but you don't have to be the one.
I don't got to sell it to you. I don't got to make the connect for you. You know.
Do you recognize you hurt women like during the course of the pimping?
Absolutely.
Did you ever reach out later on in your life to be like, hey, did you kind of do that step?
No, I don't believe in this 12-step thing.
No, not 12-step, but you know what I mean? Like, did you ever make a call to everyone and be like, hey, man, I know it's been forever, honey, but my bad. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I feel bad about what I did.
I don't have any connection for them. Like, my life had changed so much. And
there wasn't Facebook in the 90s.
Yeah, right. That wasn't a thing. And I would be reluctant to do that even now, even if I had the resources. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but people don't want to. A lot of times, you realize something. I realize is people don't really want the truth, and a lot of times when they've moved past that, they want to move. They want to bury it, and so it's also unfair sometimes to bring that shit up to people who don't want it brought up.
You don't want to re-traumatize her by bringing it up out of fucking nowhere.
And then for what purpose? So that you can have
Feel
your
better.
redemption? Fuck you. You know?
If one of those girls reached out, though, you would offer that?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no...
Well, actually, I brought candy from downstairs. No. Okay.
You know, it's a weird thing, and you know, you have to ask for forgiveness, but you got to also forgive yourself. You got to forgive yourself for your humanity. In order to be a better person, you gotta go, this is wrong, but I'm going to be a better person, and I'm going to forgive myself so that I can be a better person. Because you also can't move forward, and if you're carrying that burden, you got to put the distance between those actions and better choices. You want to just make better choices, and every day you make, you know, and those mistakes go further and further back in your rearview mirror. You know, and I don't ever why I'm open about the pimping and stuff is because I also don't want to be inauthentic. So if this is something that got me to who I am today, it is important, just like the good stuff is important. So to deny it is to where I'm a fraud, and now I really can't be truthful because I am a fraud. You know, I
It's
mean,
like with the old tweets, like I don't like deleting like super old tweets that I'm not proud of. I mean, if they're unfunny, I'll delete them. Let's not leave unfunny. That's the greatest sin.
Right.
But I don't want to delete old tweets that maybe have more shameful opinions from when I was younger, because I want to show growth. I'm not trying to like pretend that I've always been perfect. I want to show I've thought these things. I mean, hey, everybody, remember when I wasted my time hating on demisexuals? That was a waste of my energy. It's like, let me show growth instead of...
Right. Well, it's interesting because initially, even the theme song, the first theme song that I have for my podcast is cringeworthy to me. Like the clips that we put in, and it was all hyperbole because I wasn't in the context of that. But I've grown past that, and even now there's things that are cringeworthy. You know, if I go back, but that isn't that the point. The point is the evolution, and that you move further away from that, from where you are, so that you're a better person today. It's interesting because my show, Man School 202, was originally in a which was Beige Phillip before, which was Black Phillip before that, which is the show I did with Patrice on Sirius Radio. And even that stuff's funny, but it's cringeworthy in some ways. And the reality is I actually tell people not to listen to it unless they can listen to it in the context. of entertainment and comedy. And
the era that it came out. Of 2006.
Well, here's the thing. The philosophies that I subscribe to now are not, I wasn't saying that back then. And so what I find is people who go back and they listen to the Black Phillip shows and they're listening to it like it's gospel because, you know, even after Patrice's death, he took on this legendary kind of aura almost. And so people have been listening to Black Phillip over, and there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube, and it's not, It all I find is anybody that listens to those over and over again, they're angry. So it's not about solution. It was a time when we felt as though there was something that was wrong, and we started talking about it, and you know, it was 2006. It's 2019 now. You know, if I'm the same person I was in 2006, I should kill myself. You know what I mean? So I'm not, and I'm not proud of it, but I'm also not ashamed of it either, because it was the growth that took me to this point. I would not have the understanding I have about relationships if I didn't have that part in my life, and the male stripping as well, which was my own personal exploitation, you know, for money, which was women exploiting me for money. I mean, I wasn't a gigolo, but I wasn't a gigolo because I wouldn't do that. Like, so what's interesting is I always say I had decided I wasn't going to sell sex, like have sex with women for money, before anybody wanted to pay for it, which was easier to set that boundary as opposed to waiting until I was confronted with it and then making the decision then. So I had been saying, oh, I don't I don't have sex for money. I don't have sex. I had been saying it for years before somebody actually wanted to pay me to have sex with them. So there's the exploitive aspect of it by myself that I experienced, and the exploitation that I perpetuated, and the understanding of how people, what motivates people, how their insecurities and their lack of validation makes people act in very horrible, horrible ways. All of that is a level of insecurity that you punch down because you know you can't punch up, because you don't think you're worthy. Like you can have, and this is male, female, otherwise. If you got a woman and she wants to live with 2-3 guys and it's in some commune, she can. And if you're a guy and you want to deal with multiple women and stuff, you can. The thing is, you got to think that you're worthy of that.
Yeah.
Now, everybody's not going to put up with that. Everybody doesn't want to sign up for that. But you can have what you want. The problem is most people that want that don't think they're worthy of it in the first place. So if you got a guy and he's got a girlfriend and he's stepping out on his girlfriend, he's stepping out on his girlfriend because he knows that he doesn't think that he can say, listen, I love you, but I wanna have sex with other people, and so he misrepresents that he's in this relationship, but he has this other relationship that goes on. And that's because he doesn't think it. There's 2 reasons. Maybe he might be doing it because he doesn't want to hurt the person that he's with, or he feels some, but most of the time it's because he doesn't think he can ask for that. He doesn't, and I mean, what I call, even when I was married, we soft swung. Like when your man was soft swinging,
same room.
No, well, like my girl would be with girls, but she wouldn't be with guys, and I could be with girls.
So a one penis policy,
right?
That's
Right.
what some would call it.
I was just like, it's also because I really wasn't into that. There are guys who are into having a guy screw their girl, and I just wasn't into it, and that's also because I found that men. Like if you have a threesome, threesome is always two women, one man. Gangbang is gangbang.
Maybe in your world. In my world, I'm like, I'm open.
Well, fair enough.
Sure.
Fair enough. But my point being, who you want to be with, and you know what I'm saying? You can say this is not. I think I'm worth this. This is what I'm comfortable with. And if you're not comfortable with it, I totally get it. We can go our separate way. Okay. And if you're not, that's fine.
Poly people get that all the time.
Right.
You saying, hey, I'm ethically non-monogamous. And I get this a ton, like chicks who I meet like at a bar or at like some event or whatever. And they're like, oh, hey, like definitely. And then I go, well, I don't do monogamy. It's like, oh, I was like, that's fine if you're not. Like, you seem great and super cute. It's just, this is not a match.
Right.
And I know that like I'm not going to falter for your standard.
Like, so that's your authenticity. Do you understand that that becomes your authenticity, that you know who you are and you're worthy. You feel you're worthy of that. You don't feel like you have to bend your code because of it, and because you don't have to you're not willing to bend your code. A lot of times women will try it out, most of the times because you're upfront and honest, because upfront, I always say dishonesty, especially to women, dishonesty reads as your deceptiveness. Deceptive means that you're trying to hide something. Trying to hide something means you're dangerous, and dangerous means I need to get the fuck away from you. And that has to happen. That happens in a woman's, in her instinctual understanding of her own personal safety. It happens so quickly. It's like, and you're there with, I feel unsafe. This guy's a creep, and because she has to be concerned about whether or not this guy could do her some kind of harm, sexually or otherwise, or just life could kill her, because and because she has to deal with that, she has to understand that. And so if you're giving off this deceptiveness, and then you wonder why people are not responding to you, it's because you're inauthentic. When you're authentic, you find that I'm quite sure you find, because you're open and honest, you find that women find you so much more attractive. A lot of times they'll even,
and I tell them they're wrong, but I'll take it.
right. But even that that authenticity is, and then
because they're used to cheaters who like. There's a lot of chicks who like
tell them what they want to hear and then it moves on. And there's always the I can't have that, so I want it, which is ego and immaturity. Sure. So if somebody is saying this is who I am, you kind of got to give them the benefit of the doubt until you know otherwise. Now, if their actions don't match up with their words, then there's an inconsistency. Then you have to go with their actions. So, but you find that lack of validity, the fact that somebody doesn't understand what their self-worth is, they won't ask for what they want.
And so, what's your like current relationship situation?
Oh,
like, you date? What's?
I actually just got married and I got a baby on the way. Yeah.
All right. And is it like a monogamous marriage or is it Dante gets to do what he does marriage or
it is, but it's open to that. I mean, I think what's important to me is the focus of this baby is important.
Sure.
You know, this baby, that is my priority over anything else because he didn't ask to come here and that's
a very Doug Stanhope way of doing it. It's like I didn't ask to be here.
Yeah, right. Well, he you know, and it's I had a really kind of tumultuous. I had both of my parents, but it was a very tumultuous relationship, and a lot of times because people didn't have the progressiveness to go, let me fix my shit before I have a kid, and then what I do is I back up from my iCloud background from 1972 and then I upload all of my viruses into this new computer. My child is this new laptop and it has all the problems that I have with none of the experience, none of the porn that took me to get the viruses in the first place. And so this is a responsibility to have a child and then to be a better person because no matter what you're telling your kid, they're watching you. They're watching your example and they're copying you. You are the epitome of manhood. As a father, you're the epitome of how they see manhood and those principles. And your woman is the epitome of womanhood. Now, I'm not saying that those things can't change, but that is the crux of the matter. We view this by the people that raised us. And no, that is when you think of, as a child, when you think of man, you think of your father. If you think of woman, you think of your mother, unless there's some other male figure or something. But
different situation
we pick
at home,
those. Yeah, we pick those people.
You look at who raised you for various archetypes
and we use
what
that,
to be.
right?
Yeah.
And those archetypes we keep in place. And so you have to have a child and not have taken the time out to fix your own shit. Sure. It's really unfair.
So you still got some shit to fix? Is that what you're saying? Or?
I mean, I always got fix. I'm always fixing something. I'm always, the evolution of the show. Like I try to learn from. We've been doing Man School 202. Well, it's Page Phillip before, but Man School 202. We've been doing it for 7 years. And I've learned from some of the most odd people because if you just pay attention, the payoff is always there. Even if the payoff is watching how this person is struggling in life because of the things that they're missing from their own life. You learn what not to do. So you get that too. But yeah, I mean, perfection is always something that I say that we need to pursue perfection, even though we know that perfection is unattainable.
Like impeachment.
No, absolutely.
We got to pursue it. We know it's not going to work, but you got to do it.
But you got to pursue it because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. And I think that is kind of says it all. It's just the pursuit of being righteous, just being good to each other. I have a really tumultuous relationship with my sisters, and they're just not nice people. Mm. So they're always abusive and manipulative and selfish, and so. But that all comes from like this insecurity of wanting to be something that you're not, and not willing to make the sacrifices to be what you are. I mean, I kind of always come across guys who, I was reading an email. This guy was like, "You changed my life, man. I'm married. I have a great relationship. I'm a great father, and it's thanks to you." And listen, it's a great feeling, but you don't get that unless your intention is just to do good. Like my intention was just to do the right thing. just to wake up and try to do the right thing. And sometimes I don't do the right thing. Sometimes I still do fucked up shit. But the point is, my destination is to be a righteous dude who's authentic, credible, and empathetic. And if I
Keep
can be
working that more messaging.
you gotta be, and it does, because it helps you. You know, I always say your brain works as a GPS. Two things you need is you need a current location where you're at, and you need to know a detailed destination. And once you have those two things,
then the route shows up.
right? And when you're off the route, it goes recalculate. Hey, you're
messed
screwing up.
You took a right.
Let's get back on. And
You said that thing on stage wasn't
Right.
chill, dude.
Right,
Maybe
right.
we go this way.
And if you don't have that destination, then what happens? The arrow just kind of floats across the map.
Yep.
And if you want your life, and that's fine. If you want your life to be somebody who's in a boat with no oars, just floating down the stream, maybe heading over the falls, I don't know. But if you don't have oars and you're not directing life, and not, because you're affecting people in life with your actions every day. If we don't take responsibility for that, then I think that's a real tragedy. I think that takes away from everything as a society. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Dante, dude, thanks so much for chatting with me. That was very insightful, very fun.
Thank you, man. I
didn't,
appreciate it.
Didn't know we were going to go so in depth with a Louis talk.
Yeah.
So you do your own podcast, Man School 202. Like,
Yeah.
Where can people find your podcast? Where can they find you online?
We got Man School 202. It's on .com, manschool202.com, DanteNero.com. You can get the podcast right at DanteNero.com. You can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is the Dante Nero, DanteNero, and you can get one-on-one consultations. Just go to DanteNero.com and click on consult. You can book time with me and I'll fix your life.
Well, dude, thanks a lot, man. Why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody?
All right, man. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us, y'all. I mean, having me. I really appreciate the talk, man. I appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Dante, for that great conversation. Again, you can check out his podcast, Man School 202, wherever you're listening to the Man Whore podcast. You can follow me on the social medias. Hey, we just cracked 10,000 followers on Twitter. Oh, yay, oh, yay, oh, yay. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Just search Billy Procida. I'm the top result. Let me know what you thought about this week's show. Or you can leave a comment on the Man Whore Podcast Facebook page. If you really want to expound on your thoughts to me, you can shoot me an email at manwhorepod@gmail.com. New York City, this Saturday, it's happening. Man Whore Podcast Live. I want to see you at Karma Lounge at 8 p.m., though we did sell it out last year, so be careful. You may want to get your tickets online. Again, you can get those at manwhorepod.com/tickets, or you can take your chance at the door at Karma. I'm really excited to do this, and it's going to be a great time. Next week, everyone, we've got my baby's first politician. I've been waiting for this to happen for months, and I'm so excited I can finally just fucking say it. State Senator Jessica Ramos is coming on the show next week. I got a senator do a thing called Man Whore. Isn't that dope? Okay, I gotta go stuff some Man Whore Con check-in folders and some swag bags, and so I'm gonna go take care of that, everybody. You stay slutty.